Shalom.
Right. We're on page 112. 112. Please surrounds my life. What came before it and what lies beyond it are shrouded in darkness. But in the darkness is your presence, and in the mystery your love. No mind can grasp the splendor of your being. No tongue express the majesty of your works. But there are times when we sense a reality that is beyond our mortal sight. May the Sabbath be such a time for us. Help us to hear your voice, to find your image in our souls, and to be at peace. Elohai nishamasha natata bita hora hi. Ata barata, ata yetzarta, ata nefachta bi. Ata mishamra bekirbi. Kol zman shehanishama bekirbi modeh ani lefanecha. Adonai, Elohai velohei avotai. Ribon kol hamaasim. Adon kol hanishamot. Baruch atah Adonai, asher biado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol asad ish. Praise be the one at whose command the world came to be. We praise you, our God, sovereign of the universe, worshipped by your people, lauded and glorified by those who love and serve you. With songs of praise we extol you, and proclaim your sovereignty, sole source of the life of all worlds. Praise you, sovereign God, to you. stars of morning sing. From you their radiance bright did spring, and steadfast in their vigils day and night your angels, flooded with fervor, ring your praise. They teach the holy ones to bring into your house the breath of early light. The heavens declare the glory of God. Day unto day utter speech. Yet there is no speech, there are no words. And still their call goes out to all the earth. God's teaching is perfect. God's word is unfailing. God's precepts are right. God's commandments are clear. God's doctrine is pure. God's guidance is true. They are more to be desired than gold, than any amount of fine gold. Your servant pays heed to them. Who is aware of errors? Hold back your servant also from willful sins. Then I shall be blameless. Yihiu l'ratzon imrefi, v'hagyon libi lefanecha, Adonai tzurei, v'go'ani.
אני מזמיר בשירים אלו, כי אליך נפשי קרוב. נפשי עמדה בצי ידיך, תורה צודקך. מלגב ליבי כבודך,
השתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ, כי לך נאה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, אשר ושבחה, הלל וזמרה, ברכות והודאות, מעתה ועד עולם. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher v'sirei zimra. And let's turn over to 135. Baruchu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach, le'olam va'ed.
And let's be seated. We praise you, eternal one, our God, sovereign of the universe, maker of light, creator of darkness, author of peace, and creator of all things. In your mercy you give light to the earth and all who live on it. And in your goodness you renew creation continually, day by day. How manifold are your works, O God. With wisdom have you made them all. The world is full of your creations. Your handiwork proclaims your praise. The radiant stars bear witness to your glory. We praise you, O God, creator of all. Ahava Rabbah, Ahavtanu Adonai Eloheinu, Chemla Gedola V'Teirach Hamota Aleinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Ba'avor Avotenu Shebatchu V'cha, Vatlamdeim Chukei Chayim, Ken Tichonenu, Utlamdeinu, V'ten V'livenu Lavinu Lahaskil, Shmoa, Lilmod, Ulamed, Lishmor, V'la'asot, Ukayem Et Kol Divrei Toratecha, Bahava, V'ha'erenenu b'toratecha, v'dabei klivenu b'mitzvotecha, yached levavenu, v'hava u'yira et shemecha, kivanu v'charta yachenecha, Bahava, Baruch atah Adonai, habocher v'hamo Yisrael, Bahava, and let us stand. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael,
Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
V'ahavta et Adonai Elokecha B'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol ma'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha u'vleftecha b'derech u'shalchbecha u'v'kumecha u'shartam la'ot al yadecha v'hayu l'totachot b'neinecha u'v'tatam al mezuzot b'techa u'visharecha. Let's be seated.
Nemantis Geruch, was item et comisatai, item kedoshim Elohem, Ani Adonai Elohem, Asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
And let's read together. Good and beautiful and true, sound, established and enduring are these words now and forever. True it is, eternal one, that you are sovereign God and Redeemer, as you were the God and Redeemer of our ancestors. You are our Maker, the rock of our salvation. We have known you always as our helper and our liberator. There is no God but you. Truly you are first and you are last. We have no Redeemer but you. You redeemed us from Egypt and freed us from the house of bondage. And then with great joy, Moses, Miriam, and all Israel together sang to you this song. Eternal God, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, L'ma'an Shmo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, L'chaim Etim Atah Rav V'Hoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGeshem, Mazriach HaShemesh U'Morid HaTal, Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed, L'chaim Etim B'Rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofech Olim, U'Matir Asurim, U'Mkayem Emunato L'Shanei Afar, Mi Chamocha Ba'al Givorot, Umi Domelach, Melech Meimitum Chaye U'Matzmiach Yeshua, V'Ne'eman Atah HaChayot Meitim, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechaye HaMeitim. We sanctify your name on earth, as in the prophet's vision the hosts of heaven sing your praise above, for so it is written.
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Zevaot, Melech haaretz kevodo.
Kvodo malei olam.
Baruch Adonai,
Mimkomecha Malkeinu Tofia, V'tim lo chalenu, Ki mechakim anachnu lach.
Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Zion, le'dor v'ador, Hallelujah.
L'dor v'ador nagid godlecha, U'netzach netzachim kedushatcha nakish. V'shivtacha Eloheinu, Ipinu lo yamush le'olam va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. And let's be seated. You inspired our ancestors to hallow this day for your service. When upon its coming we pause to contemplate our life, we learn in you that we do not live by bread alone, but also by the spiritual nourishment we receive when we open ourselves to your influence. We thank you for the Sabbath day and for the opportunity it offers to enhance the quality of our lives. We thank you for its joy, for its peace. Now worship help us to take into our hearts its message of holiness. Consecrate all our days by devotion to what is true, beautiful, and good.
Yismechu b'malchutcha, Yismechu b'malchutcha, Shomrei Shabbat b'kol le'oneh. Amen kadshesh shevini, Amen kadshesh shevini, Kulam yisme'u v'yimtu mitzuvecha.
Lord God and God of our ancestors, may our rest on this day be pleasing in your sight. Sanctify us by your commandments, and make us loyal to your teaching. Satisfy us with your goodness. Gladden us with your salvation, and purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, eternal one, let the holiness of your Sabbath enter our hearts, and may all Israel who hallow your name be exalted by its peace. We praise you, O God, for the holiness of the Sabbath. That say Adonai Eloheinu b'Amcha Yisrael, u'tfilatam b'hava tekabel, u'til ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael anecha. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadecha, v'yiran ha'od. We give thanks that you, eternal one, are our God, as you were the God of our ancestors. You're the rock of our life, a power that shields us in every age. We thank and praise you for our lives, which are in your hand, for our souls, which are in your keeping, for the signs of your presence we encounter every day, and for your wondrous gifts at all times, morning, noon, and night. We praise you, God, source of goodness. To our thanks unto you. Sim shalom. Tova uvracha. Chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Aleinu v'yol kol Yisrael anecha. Barachenu avinu. Kulanu ke'echad ba'or panecha. Ki ba'or panecha natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu. Torat chayim. V'havat chesed. Utzedakah uvracha. V'rachamim. V'chayim. V'shalom. V'tov beinecha levarechen amecha Yisrael. Lekol ha'amim. V'choleit v'chol sha'a v'shlomecha. Baruch atah Osei Shalom. Turn over to page 481 for our Torah service. There is none like you, eternal one among the God's people worship, and there are no deeds like yours. Your sovereignty is everlasting. Your reign endures from age to age. Eternal one, you reign, you have reigned, you will reign forever. Eternal God, give strength to your people. Eternal God, bless your people with peace. Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Eternal One is our God. The Eternal God is one.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadlul Adonai iti, unroma mashmo yachdav. Let us magnify the Eternal One together. Let us exalt God's name.
Adonai,
So I shall be reading from the Sidra known as Bahar Sinai. And by way of context, if you recall, especially 2 weeks ago, Kedoshim, where the Torah gets involved, very involved, in the everyday, the marketplace, yeah? And weights and measures, cash flow, loans, witnesses, bribery. And holiness is about being fair, about being honest, about following the little things, even in the secular arena. So religion and what's out there are not separate. So today takes that further. And you might say we go from the practical, the everyday, the minutia, to the big stuff. And we might say that this is linked in terms of economics, but what we have today is an act of moral imagination. Okay? Doesn't mean it ever happened, but it's an act of imagining. And so I'll talk further about that later. So Leviticus 25, verses 1 through 13. And in the Soncino, 764 and 764, and in the JPSA, page 195. Baruchu et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein ha'torah. The Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai. Speak to the Israelite people and say to them, when you enter the land that I assign to you, the land shall observe the Sabbath of the Lord. 6 years you may sow your field, and 6 years you may prune your vineyard, and gather in the yield. But in the 7th year the land shall have a Sabbath of complete rest, the Sabbath of the Lord. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. You shall not reap the aftergrowth of your harvest or gather the grapes of your untrimmed vines. It shall be a year of complete rest for the land. But you may eat whatever the land during its Sabbath will produce, you, your male and female slaves, the hired and bound laborers who live with you, and your cattle and the beasts in your land may eat all its yield. Furthermore, you shall count off 7 weeks of years, 7 times 7 years, so that the period of 7 weeks of your years gives you a total of 49 years. Then you shall sound the horn loud. In the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, the Day of Atonement, you shall have the horn sounded throughout your land. And you shall hallow the 50th year. You shall proclaim release throughout the land for all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. Each of you shall return to his holding, and each of you shall return to his family. The 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. You shall not sow, neither shall you reap the aftergrowth of harvest, the untrimmed vines, for it is a jubilee. It shall be holy to you. You may only eat the growth direct from the field in this year of jubilee. Each of you shall return to his holding. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe, Bahar Sinai lemor. Daber el b'nei Yisrael, v'amarta alehem, ki tabo'u el ha'aretz asher ani noten lachem. V'shavta ha'aretz Shabbat l'Adonai. 6 shanim tizra sadecha, v'shesh shanim tizmor karmecha. V'asafta et tuvoata. Uvashana hashviyit Shabbat Shabbaton, yihi el ha'aretz, Shabbat l'Adonai. Sadecha, Sadecha, Lo Tizra, V'karmacha, Lo Tizmor, Et Safiach, Ketzircha, lo tiktsor. Vetin vei nazirecha, lo tiktsor. Shnat Shabbaton yihia la'aretz, v'haita Shabbat haaretz lachem, v'ochla, l'cha, v'avtecha, v'la'amatecha, v'lischircha, v'toshabecha, hagarim imach, v'livhemtecha, v'lachaya, asher ba'artzecha, tihiyeh kol tivuata le'echol, v'safarta l'cha, sheva shabtot shanim, sheva pa'amim, v'hayu l'cha, yemei sheva shabtot, hashanim, tesha v'arba'im shana, v'ha'avarta shofar trua b'chodesh hashvi'i, v'asur l'chodesh, b'yom ha'kippurim, ta'aviru shofar b'chol artzechem, kidashtem et shnat ha'chamishim shana, ukratem dror ba'aretz l'chol yoshvei, yovel hi, tihiyeh lachem, v'shavtem ish el achuzato, v'ish el mishpachto tashuvu, yovel hi, shnat ha'chamishim shana, tihiyeh lachem, lo tizra'u, v'lo tiktsu, et sefichecha, lo tifsaru, et nazirecha, ki yovel hi, kodesh tihiyeh lachem, min hasadeh tochlu, et tuvuata, v'shnat hayovel hazot tashuvu, ish el achuzato. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai notei haTorah. And let's stand.
Baruch shenatan Torah, ve'amor Yisrael, b'kdushato.
Please be seated, everybody.
Today's Haftarah is from Jeremiah chapter 32, verses 6 to 27. You can find it on page 840 of the JPS Tanakh. Jeremiah lived in Judah, a Babylonian province, circa 640 to 587 BCE. He was born to a priestly family. He lived through the two sieges of Jerusalem in 597 and 586. He was a preacher of repentance, threatening judgment and holding out the promise of restoration. To Jeremiah, religion was an inward thing, a personal relation between the individual and his maker. Apparently, Israel survived the Babylonian exile because Jeremiah was concerned about the welfare of the city in which they were living, even from his prison compound. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'ha b'nviim tovim, v'ratzah b'divreihem, hanei emirim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai, habu ha'er. Oh, thank you. B'Torah, u'Moshe Avdo Yisrael Amo Uvinviye Ha'emet V'Tzedek. Jeremiah said, "The word of the Lord came to me. Hanamel, the son of your uncle Shalom, will come to you and say, buy my land in Anathoth, for you are next in succession to redeem it by purchase." And just as the Lord had said, my cousin Hanamel came to me in the prison compound and said to me, "Please buy my land in Anathoth, in the territory of Benjamin, for the right of succession is yours, and if you have a duty of redemption, buy it." Then I knew that it was indeed the word of the Lord. So I bought the land in Anathoth from my cousin Hanamel. I weighed out the money to him, 17 shekels of silver. I wrote a deed, sealed it, and had it witnessed, and I weighed out the silver on a balance. I took the deed of purchase, the sealed text and the open one, according to rule and law, and gave the deed to Baruch, son of Neriah, son of Maaseiah, in the presence of my kinsman Hanamel, of the witnesses who were named in the deed, and all the Judeans who were sitting in the prison compound. In their presence I charged Baruch as followed. Thus said the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, take these documents, this deed of purchase, the sealed text and the open one, and put them into an earthen jar so they may last a long time. For thus said the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, houses, fields, and vineyards shall again be purchased in this land. But after I had given the deed to Baruch, son of Neriah, I prayed to the Lord, our Lord God, you made heaven and earth with your great might and outstretched arm. Nothing is too wondrous for you. You show kindness to the thousandth generation, but visit the guilt of the fathers upon their children after them. O great and mighty God, whose name is Lord of hosts, wondrous in purpose and mighty in deed, whose eyes observe all the ways of men, so as to repay every man according to his ways and with the proper fruit of his deeds. You displayed signs and marvels in the land of Egypt with lasting effect, and won renown in Israel and among mankind to this very day. You freed your people Israel from the land of Egypt with signs and marvels, with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, and with great terror. You gave them this land that you had sworn to their fathers to give them, a land flowing with milk and honey. And they came and took possession of it, but they did not listen to you or follow your teaching. They did nothing of what you commanded them to do. Therefore you have caused all this misfortune to befall them. Here are the siege mounds raised against the city to storm it, and the city, because of sword and famine and pestilence, is at the mercy of the Chaldeans who are attacking it. What you threatened has come to pass, as you see. Yet you, Lord God, said to me, buy the land for money and call in witness when the city is at the mercy of the Chaldeans. Then the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah. Behold, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. Is anything too wondrous for me? Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, so kol ha'olamim, tzadik chol hadorot, ha'el hanei eman, ha'omer va'oseh, ha'ma'adaber u'makayim, shekol davarav, emet v'tzedek. Al ha'torah, va'al ha'avodah, va'al ha'nevi'im, va'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, שנתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לה, ומכירים אותה. יתברך שמה, בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת.
So on page 484, we have a reader for the first paragraph. Yes, please.
Eternal God, whose dominion embraces the universe, we ask your blessing for our sovereign Lady Queen Elizabeth and all the royal family, for those who govern our country and all who influence the quality of its national life. Make them conscious of their responsibility and teach them to exercise it in accordance with your will. May we all help to fashion in this country a society that excels in freedom and justice, tolerance and compassion, so that it may be a force for righteousness and peace in the life of humanity.
Thank you. And the second paragraph about the welfare of the community.
Eternal God, as you blessed our ancestors in generations past, bless now this congregation, its leaders and its members, and all who enter this synagogue to meet, to study, and to pray. Comfort the sorrowing hearts among us, and heal those in anxiety or pain. May we all find here community and friendship, renewal of purpose and hope, a deeper understanding of our heritage, and a sense of your abiding presence. Bless all congregations of the house of Israel throughout the world. Let those who live under oppressive rule soon be freed, and may we all unite to witness to your truth and do your will.
And on this Shabbat, thinking of Mike Solomon, and I hope the good news continues, that he can pile on the strength and carry on, and that things can stay at this plateau for a long time. And also thinking of the family of Sidney Jacobs. Sidney passed away this week, and hoping that Terry and his children and grandchildren all find strength. And indeed, judging from what was said at the funeral yesterday, and what people shared, he has left a tremendous legacy of warmth and love and humor and intelligence and care. And would anyone like to mention the name of another person?
My cousin Nikki and her husband Mel.
Wish them strength. And the prayer for Israel, do we have a reader, Paul?
Eternal God, our rock and redeemer, grant blessing to the state of Israel, created to fulfill an age-old dream and to be a haven for the oppressed. Inspire its leaders and citizens with faithfulness to the aims of its founders. Develop the land for the benefit of all the inhabitants, and to implement the prophetic ideals of liberty and justice. May they live in harmony with one another and in peace with their neighbors, and cause to come true once more the ancient vision that out of Zion shall go forth Torah and the word of God from Jerusalem.
Hallelujah, Shem Adonai, Kinas God, Shemo Levado. Let us praise the Eternal One, whose name alone is exalted. Teaching is perfect. God's word is unfailing. God's precepts are right. God's commandments are clear. God's doctrine is pure. God's guidance is true. Behold, a good doctrine has been given you. Do not forsake it. It is a tree of life to those who hold it fast, and all who cling to it find happiness. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Please be seated, everybody. So there are two aspects to our Torah reading. One is every 7 years, the fields are fallow, and that process, the Shemitah year, is practiced in Israel today, and I suppose by some ultra-affirmers in upstate New York somewhere, when they're not fighting against the measles vaccinations. And it's something that, let's say, is environmentally very sound, and people are quite aware of that concept. The second aspect, which is a little less clear from the Torah reading, is the 50th year, the Jubilee year, and this has to do with the manumission of slaves and the remission of debts. And we've talked about it a lot before in previous years, and there's, we've made the point that, wow, this hardly ever existed, and it's just something. But why is it there? What is it? Just taking up space? And I would argue, as I did just a few moments ago, that it very much takes off where Kedoshim leaves us. So it moves from the minute to the very large. And Louis, you remember Kedoshim, your bar mitzvah sidra, 11 years ago. You didn't have your beard then. And indeed, reading it on Yom Kippur every year, that holiness is about human action, the economic, the marketplace is where these things occur. I wonder if what we are seeing here in the text, whether it was emailed on Mount Sinai or drafted somewhere else, is irrelevant. What we're seeing here is a kind of contest between the hard-edged realists versus the dreamers. We could all argue that it's important for the weights and measures to be of a standard, and all of those things to be observed carefully. The cash flow, the vulnerable, the laborer, people who don't have any assets, they should be paid straight away rather than, as all too often happens in our society, the independent contractors, the smaller ones especially, are made to wait for months and months to be paid. And that so much of big business exists on the backs of the smaller people in terms of involuntarily extending credit. So this takes it further. What is this saying? In a way, it's about income distribution, but it's a plea to think about this stuff. With no evidence this ever happened, but it's a plea to think, and it's quite vague. So I would argue, as I said before, it's an act of moral imagination, and that the hard-edged, things should just stay the way they are, the status quo. That's simply not enough when it comes to having a society that's based on ethics. Now, if we go too far in the direction of moral imagination, you get into messianism. And that's an extreme thing. All sorts of things can go awry. So what is the balance? Well, that's the discussion. How do we find the balance between the dream, the vision, versus the hard-edged? And if that's not happening, then we have kind of what's going on today. We have the blame game. People looking for easy answers. Let's blame Europe. Let's blame the Tories. Let's blame labor. Let's blame this. Let's blame that. But there's so little imagination. A year or two ago, I discussed with you, bless you, Lewis, the book by Thomas Piketty about economics. And it's his argument that income inequality has grown hugely due to the fact that assets and capital is valued much more than labor. Okay? And that took it a certain part of the way in terms of this kind of discussion. Let's take it further. Let's go into the question of maybe whatever economic system, whatever approach to any of this we have, should reflect what we value. So it shouldn't be the other way around. In other words, what is valuable, say gold, dictates how we think what is valuable, the material. But maybe we should start with what we regard as being really important. Well, some of those things might include air pollution on Oxford Street. That's a problem. It might include certain things about education or extremism or certain things going on in society that we don't like. How do we begin to think about those notions of value, of dealing with those kinds of problems, should be introduced to an economic system? Lewis just gave me a book. It's even signed by the author. It says To Frank and Joy. And this book addresses that very question. Mariana Mazzucato, an academic, the value of everything, making and taking in the global economy. Just published. It is absolutely outstanding. And those of you who read the Financial Times and may be looking for something a little deeper, this is right up your street. This is not to plug certain ideas or dogmas, but it's to raise the question, begin the discussion. And that is what the Torah reading is seeking to do. So whether that comes from a secular venue or a so-called religious value, it doesn't matter. Indeed, both should work hand in hand. And that was the substance of the conference I went to and spoke at in March at the Vatican about religions and sustainable development goals. We need each other, religion, the religious, the secular, if the planet is to survive as we know it beyond 2030 in terms of global warming and everything else. So I want to share just 2 or 3 paragraphs from this, and perhaps these kinds of questions will interest you. So, what is value? How do we decide what is value? And Mazzucato writes in the beginning here, just a couple of paragraphs, until the mid-19th century too, almost all economists assumed that in order to understand the prices of goods and services, it was first necessary to have an objective theory of value, a theory tied to the conditions in which those goods and services were produced, including the time needed to produce them, the quality of the labor employed, and the determinants of value actually shape the prices of these goods and services. Okay, everybody with me so far? A little economics, everybody's head goes fuzzy. Then this thinking began to go in reverse. Many economists came to believe that the value of things was determined by the price paid on the market, or in other words, what the consumer was prepared to pay. All of a sudden, value was in the eye of the beholder. Any goods or services being sold at an agreed market price were by definition value creating. So we could get into things that actually cost very little to produce, but could be priced really high. Perfume. And some things which took a huge amount to produce in terms of labor and materials and time and effort and energy were actually priced quite low. Okay, so we're getting into demand and supply and all stuff like that. The swing from value determining price to price determining value coincided with major social changes at the end of the 19th century. One was the rise of socialism, which partly bases demands for reforms on the claim that labor was not being rewarded fairly for the value it created, and the ensuing consolidation of a capitalist class of producers. The latter group was unsurprisingly keen on the alternative theory that price determined value, a story which allowed them to defend their appropriation of a larger share of output, with labor increasingly being left behind. So now we start to see the politic. In the 70s, labor, in a sense, can hold the country to ransom with strikes and chaos and all the rest of it. And then since then, the pendulum has swung the other way. So then she goes on to say that eventually the concept of value, what value should be, vanished from the universities. The study of what this concept should be just utterly vanished. And economists just assumed. And let's come to the end. And this has brought us to where we are today, she argues, this non-debate, these assumptions. And she concludes, the concept of value must once again find its rightful place at the center of economic thinking. More fulfilling jobs, less pollution, better care, more equal pay. What sort of economy do we want? When the question is answered, we can decide how to shape our economic activities, thereby moving activities that fulfill these goals inside the production boundary so they are rewarded for steering growth in the ways we deem desirable. And this is the question of incentives. So many of the incentives that we have economically in our society are disincentives for thinking about the things that we care about. So how do we create incentives for social change in the ways that we decide might be desirable? And in the meantime, we can also make a much better job of reducing activities that are purely about rent seeking and calibrating rewards more closely with truly productive activity. And here we get into the whole question of assets and passive income versus actually making something. And I wonder, when we just on the street and everywhere else talk about, oh, we don't make anything anymore, we don't produce anything, I wonder if it's getting at this very question, that what is considered valuable and rewarding and where people make a lot of money is through activities that largely fall in the classification of rent seeking. You know? I began the book stating that the goal was not to argue that one value theory is better than another. My aim is for the book to stir a new debate, putting value back at the center of economic reasoning. This is not about drawing firm and static fences around the production boundary, arguing that some actors are parasites or takers while others are glorious producers and makers. Rather, we should have a more dynamic understanding of what making and taking are in the context of the societal objectives that we may have. Both objective and subjective factors will no doubt come into play. But the subjective one should not reduce everything to an individual choice, stripped from the social, political, and economic context in which decisions are made. It is those very contexts that are affected by the objective dynamics of technological change and corporate governance. And so she's calling for a debate, a really honest and tough debate about what is really important to us and putting that into play in terms of economics. And in a way, the Torah is doing exactly the same thing with today. What are the values? Dignity, freedom, not completely ruining the land. In fact, nobody owns the land but God. We're tenants on the land. And our tenancy is based on our behavior. So in this life, we own nothing really. Whoa, is that going to lead to socialism? Is that dangerous? Let's have the debate about the kinds of values that are laid down here and what we should or could really care about, and how that is translated into prices, wages, and the everyday marketplace. So let's now turn to page 520 and let's stand for the anthem. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, latet gedula v'yotzer breshit, asher sam chalkenu li'ached et shema, v'for aleinu l'hamnei, Amen. Shemayim v'yased aretz, v'moshav yekaro b'shemayim ima'al, v'shchinatu zo begofhei me'omin, hu Eloheinu ein od, emet malkeinu efes ilato, kakatu b'torato, v'yadata hayom v'hashevota elu v'vecha, ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shemayim ima'al, v'aretz mitachat ein od. Trusting in you, eternal God, we hope soon to behold the glory of your might, when false gods will vanish from our hearts and idolatry cease forever. Help us perfect the world by bringing it under your unchallenged rule. When all will invoke your name, relinquish evil, and turn to you alone, may all who dwell on earth come to know that to you every knee must bend and every tongue swear loyalty. Before you let them humble themselves, and to your glorious name let them give honor. Let all submit to your sovereign rule. May that time come soon and last forever. For ultimate sovereignty is yours, and to all eternity will reign in glory, as it is written, the Eternal One shall reign forever.
Oh
before you, O God. We think of those who once shared with us the joys and burdens of life, and who are no longer in our midst. On this Shabbat we remember Leslie Miller, Joyce Mitchell, Norman Prince, Thelma Rosen, Dora Vishnik, and our member Sidney Jacobs. And would anyone like to mention the name of a loved one or friend? The sorrow of our bereavement is softened by the bond of love, which continues to unite us with our dear ones, and by our cherished memories of them, which we will always carry in our hearts. May all that was good in their lives remain with us as an influence for good. O God, grant consolation to those who are in sorrow, and light to those in darkness. Teach us at all times to put our trust in you, and to praise your name. Yitkadal Yitkadash Shemei Ba'alma Divrach Irteg Yomlich Malchuteg V'chayechon Yomechon Chayei L'chol Beit Yisrael V'adalav Yisman Kadri V'imru Amen Yehei Shmei Rabban Mevorach Le'olam U'Lamei L'Maya Yitbarak V'Yishtabak V'Yitfrar V'Yitermam V'Yitnaseh V'Yitadar V'Yitaleh V'Yitalal Shemei L'Kudishah B'Richu Le'elam Min Kal Birchata V'Shirata Tushpachata V'Nechemata Daran Balma V'Imru Amen Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'Chayim Aleinu V'Yol Kol Yisrael V'Imru Amen Oseh Shalom B'Mromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'Yol Kol Yisrael V'Yol Kol B'nei Adam V'Imru Amen. Please be seated. I believe we have Yom Zeh.
It's on page 644.
644. Yom Zeh Yisrael.
Yom Zeh Yisrael, Ora v'Simcha, Ora v'Simcha, Shabbat Menucha. Yom Zeh Yisrael, Ora v'Simcha, Shabbat Menucha. Shabbat Menucha. Tzvika b'kudim al Mahamad Sinai, Shabbat u'moadim lishto b'chol shanai, Ta'arach lefanai, Mazel v'arucha. Shabbat Menucha. Shabbat Menucha. Yom Zeh Yisrael, Ora v'Simcha, Ora v'Simcha, Shabbat Menucha. Yom Zeh Yisrael, Ora v'Simcha, Shabbat Menucha. Shabbat Menucha. Pentach al-Mamon al-Allah Shabura, Neshach Nichavad, Neshama Yizera, V'nefesh Tzera, Yasir Anacha. Shabbat Menucha. Shabbat Menucha. Yom Zeh Yisrael, Ora v'Simcha, Ora v'Simcha, Shabbat Menucha. Yom Zeh Yisrael, Ora v'Simcha, Shabbat Menucha. Shabbat Menucha. Hidashta v'rachta, Oto michoyam nifreshoshet kedoita, Rechet olamim, Kol masu adamim, Hashket uvicha. Shabbat Menucha. Shabbat Menucha. Yom Zeh Yisrael, Ora v'Simcha, Ora v'Simcha, Shabbat Menucha. Yom Zeh Yisrael, Ora v'Simcha, Shabbat Menucha. Shabbat Menucha.
I would argue that the key word behind everything in Leviticus is renewal. We have renewal in terms of our relationship with God through acts of giving. Okay, we could argue about what those might be. in particular, but we have our own understandings of what giving might be. Renewal through the festivals, life cycle ceremonies, and the festivals were discussed in last week's Sidra. And here we have questions of renewing the land through giving it to rest, Shabbat, Menucha, we renew freedom and energy, but there's also renewal of the relations we have with each other on so many levels. And the second part of the Torah reading today was about the social order. And his stagnation in terms of social status, debt, servitude. Is that the best way for renewing the energy and the talents in society? Or is it something else? And so from different sectors, different disciplines, we argue for a real debate. Shabbat Shalom. Right, I'm told that we need to wait about 15 minutes, maybe a little more. So if you don't want to wait, it's your choice. If you want to wait, it's your choice also. Hafsaba has some announcements.
Kevin has just wanted to remind you all that the services on Friday will be at Sylvia Lowe's this coming Friday, and the following week will be at the Feebles. So he just wanted me to mention
This is
that.
Friday evening.
Friday evening service.
24th and I think the 31st.
Yeah. And book him through the office or with Kevin.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
I get the details.
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Are you still studying?
Yeah. I'm close to finishing my second year of my PhD.
Are you living in this country now?
Yeah, I'm in Oxford.
What time?
Doing PhD, 2 more years to go.
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
hard work.
Yeah, that's fine. 9:30 is fine, because I think I now
I don't know, yeah.
have a 1 o'clock.
I enjoy, so I'm doing some teaching while I'm to like the undergraduates.
Yeah, I have a...
Yeah, I was just thinking.
Yeah, that's fine. Do you want to meet at Miriam's Masjid or
It's a really important job. When you come to think of it, all jobs are really important.
Yeah.
I mean, the dustman,
Yeah.
we also need somebody.
So I went to listen to the author talk and then I got some copies of the book. And it was like an emphasis on what we should see value in terms of our long-term goals rather than the monetary gain. So our interest in helping society, what we should be able to work towards that goal.
But I mean, if you do your job properly, everybody will help society.
Yeah, of course.
Criminals.
Yeah. Or divorce lawyers. Yeah. Or landlords, I don't know. You're going to Berlin? Are you going to Berlin? Berlin.
The dirty work that nobody wants to do.
Just the weekend. Yeah, I
And they have to give themselves at a very deep level, and this applies to all manner of professions. All manner of professions care at a deep level. How can you can't give out of a void. And if you have a society that values other stuff more, So what is it that we care about? You know, that should be reflected in value, and maybe teachers in care should be paid very highly.
Okay. Right, okay, I'll try that. Get that right. Sorry. Yeah.
It's incredible.
You and Alan.
The first part, issues, doesn't matter. I don't know what character it is, but maybe I don't know it. What's his living doing?
You were there.
No.
Allowed to be there.
I don't know what my head current know, but maybe possible. Yes.
Okay, thank you, my dear.
You've been there for 20 years. And it's a speech, 25 minutes long. Okay.
1 minute.
About the planning commission, yeah.
I'll Google it.
Mike Solomon, Ted.
Nice. Good. Very talented. Your 3 sons are very talented, each in their own way.
Okay.
Totally different. That's good. Ours are totally different.
The longest bashing from my personal perspective. Yes.
Oh, what? So it's
I hate to be the same.
No, I hear it, because somebody's around the corner.
Yes, Hall Road, yeah. Yeah. So
Yes. Collaborate.
Oh, you're not fighting. They're ganging up on you.
Unit.
Well, you know, I mean,
Right. They're in one place to
probably be a good training.
surround them.
Yeah, divine rule.
Yeah.
No, they've never done that.
Really?
No.
It's been no, it's not ganging up.
Lewis and I gang up with girls.
That's different. It's been taken.
Girls try and gang up with us, but it's not about gender.
I mean, it's all in fun. I like pulling her leg. And actually, she's eating meals.
Sure, just
He's just sponsored by and then at the end of it, they climb.
Not as much, but still.
Well, I asked you.
climbing the walls now.
Not and then
That's climbing the walls.
oh gosh, I was at Bali for 2 weeks. Was never
Those nights are good. That's not every night. Yeah.
On Tuesday, Sarah's coming back from the States, and then all 3 babies will be in the country. And this is my baby doing his PhD in chemistry at Oxford. Well, you know, we beat them up if they didn't study.
So it's only just this back
Absolutely. When he was a baby, he was just a little guy. Yeah. He's now 24 years old. Yeah. Long ago past Mia. Absolutely. Well, you're lucky. We're both lucky. Which is fabulous. Yeah, and your grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
And you worked with
Well, my oldest great-grandson is 18.
yes, that's what I mean.
Thank you, Joseph. Hope you enjoyed that.
I do the same. I'm not with that, but I'm aware of her work from the. I mean, they set up like Labour had an economist council at one point, which she was in
She was one of them.
a couple of years ago.
I think she still speaks to the government.
Yeah, well, she's one of the major people of the kind of like what do they call it, like heterodox
good to meet soon.
economics, like.
Only thing this week.
The only day I can't do is
What?
Wednesday.
How to do it? It's hard to think beyond value being price, isn't it? Price we're willing to pay. It must have gone back to the era of price controls, right? Like this costs X, so we will set.
She gave some good examples historically where it has been occurred. So, for example, in the US, when they were racing to get to space, and they would be spending millions on things which may not necessarily appear to be giving value, but rather solving problems to address the issue of getting into space, rockets, things like that, and that led to the invention of things which are now the internet and aspects of society which can directly benefit. So it's something about like government investment and appropriate taxing and investing in things, not necessarily because you see the monetary gain, but more because
Yes,
the
it's
goals
the
you
same.
want
It's my full name.
or what you want to solve. So I guess
You have emailed
that,
me.
I think that leads to different. I guess a good example they do in this country would be like an investment in
So we're looking
alternative
at.
power.
I think probably in that case.
Investment in.
Alternative power, like they have all those nuclear plants.
One thing I read this week says like if they wanted to get to total zero carbon by 2025, like I read something like we don't have enough people to fit all the boilers. So therefore you'd have to have a program of like training X number of engineers. So like that would push you into a different kind of
like they're going to
model.
and it's also about inventing new industries, creating new markets rather than trying to fix something which
exists.
broken. Like so yeah. In terms of green energy, you're going to have to actually invest in new emerging markets.
Come to think of it, all jobs are very important apart from people manufacturing weapons of mass. But apart from that, even the dustbin.
Absolutely.
I think advertising can go.
War is
that was just
still
pointless.
war is still
The
one
black
of the
arts.
only few.
Start reading.
War is still one of the few things countries do, which is goal-orientated. While it is very twisted, it's still one of the few things we do.
There's always a budget for war, isn't there? Like somehow
which makes no
funds
sense.
are always available.
But it's because they see it as a very high priority, so they're going to put any amount towards it, and there's always jobs there, and always.
Well, yes.
Well, Marshall's very primitive feelings, and you have to have a vision articulated that counters primitive feelings because they fill the void.
But there's people that have argued that they kind of move towards like aerial bombings. It's like they're ways to cut the cost.
Yeah, the atom bomb was a total cost-saving thing in terms of lives, and you only need one aircraft instead of 100. It's complete cost-saving, and nobody talks about that, as well as sending the Soviets a message.
Right.
That was the real rationale.
But whenever there's they have these issues they want to solve in these other areas, they're going to have to find solutions which may be used to make other products or bring value to the economy.
Where should I put this?
Is this just on the shelf?
In the shelf?
Yeah, the 1, 2, 3rd shelf. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
The what? Sorry? Football? I don't know. I know there's Eurovision.
Traffic, you know.
And we also have a society where the so-called number one has value out of all proportion to everybody else.
We need to know whether we should have
So that's really sicko.
Making the most money.
Yeah, everybody wants to be number one. Well, what's all that about?
I know. It's humbling.
Yeah.
Are you going down?
No,
It's downstairs in the cafe.
So we're going back to queue up.
Yeah. In total, there'll be about 25.
so marvellous.
We want it small.
Oh, that sounds very
Well, if Frank isn't there, they won't start.
Yeah.
right. So
No, wait a
I'll
minute.
tell you.
Yeah, I checked. Your names are on the list. They actually wrote down your name wrong, and we're sending emails to the wrong place. So hopefully you'll get an email which has the full schedule, and because they were sending it to the wrong email address.
It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens with letters as well.
So I corrected. They had you as Hala instead of Hannah. I don't know where they got Hala.
It's nice, mate.
I've got enough to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't send me a schedule. I asked for one, and then it was like the draft one, so I asked you for the actual one.
The actual one is almost exactly the same as the draft one.
No, but the draft one didn't have any session title or didn't have any descriptions.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, they need to send it out.
They're done downstairs.
So what time are we going to... I think they're going now.
Annie, I'm going down.
The only thing is, let's just close the windows and switch off the lights. Right. Yeah. So I've got to close.
That's not meant to be out, is it?
Okay, that's that. That's that. And all we need to do now, thanks for bringing up the windows, I'll just switch off the lights. Thanks, Hepzibah, that was great. And I'll see you at 8 o'clock. I mean, I can't believe it. 8 o'clock.
We're doing 8.
Mad. Still, the things one does for a bit of education, it should be very interesting. I'll work out a Oh.